Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop where you're watching this video right here on the homepage. You're also seeing us on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT and on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. Of course, you can also get the audio on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. So a lot of places to get involved with us live here Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Fill your cup with your favorite today. And I am here with one of my favorite people of my entire 17 plus year career. She knows it. She made me cry multiple times within the last couple of years. And I mean, somebody means something to you when you remember the first time you sat with them, and you remember the chairs, you remember the table, you remember where you sat, which is right in front of the Ted Grant court when there used to be foldable chairs and kind of those like pop-up tables there. It's where I met Gina Castelli. And then when the Moyne Dolphins won their first ever NE10, I was there with her as she was cutting down the net. And within a couple minutes left, when I realized it was going to happen, I started to tear up. And then she gave me a hug, and we kind of joked about the fact that, we've been, really since Gina's gotten there and since I came back home to Central New York, we've known each other. So I find it very difficult to not make this an even longer intro, but Gina Castelli, one of the greats that I know in my life. So I welcome her to the show. Gina, how are we doing?
Now I really sound old, so I should retire.
I sound old too. I didn't say how many years. I just said
17 years. That means you were starting when you were you had 9 years in when I when I started here. Yeah, I remember that day too. It was fun.
How many years have you coached altogether?
That's a great. I started in 1987, right after I graduated from college, so close to 35 years. So I was an assistant for 2 or 3 years, and then was a head coach the rest of that time. So
you come to Moyne. You and I talk literally when you had come in, when they had hired you. We sat at that table outside of Ted Grant Court, and you told me your vision.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that vision was accomplished?
I do. I know, obviously you want to win a national championship, but I do think that we've put Moyne one on the map, and definitely whoever takes this program over has the opportunity to build it. It's already in a sense to a national championship program. I think that when I took this program in the beginning, I don't think many people thought we could even win a lot of games. And so I think what we've done is made a lot of people believers. And I'm sure that HR is probably getting a lot of good resumes now, whereas before, I'm sure when I applied for the job, I don't know if there were many that really applied for it. So I think we've put it in a place where it's in a really good place in the NE10 conference, where, hey, we made it to the Sweet 16. We were one game shy of getting to the Elite Eight. And, I think that we've done a really, really good job. And, so I'm excited. I'm excited for our team next year. Everybody's, we have a loaded class with seniors, and I think the culture's there and they understand what it takes to win.
Making this decision after 8 seasons, looking at it, overall as a head coach, 458 and 376, your record at Moyne, 122 and 80. I want to make a note of this, as your 122 victories at Moyne are the second most in the program's history, but you're the only one of the 5 coaches that have been there for Moyne's women's basketball team that has ever posted a winning record overall. So 122 wins. You won a little bit over 60% of the time. You're the only coach in Moyne Dolphins women's basketball history to have a winning record. Thoughts on that?
I'm happy. I'm happy with what we've been able to accomplish. And and again, I think that sometimes you got to see it to believe it. And I think for the next coach, they know you can win here. I think we proved it in the years that we were here. And so I'm really happy that we were able to do that. Obviously it's not really what, I'm about. I do think that, culture trumps anything that you do. And I think when you have good culture, you can win a lot of games, and I think that's really what we established here, and that's why I also feel really good about years to come. I think that we're leaving this program with really solid players and kids that understand what it takes to win. That whoever is going to come in is going to inherit a really good group of girls that understand how hard you need to work and what it takes to win games at a high level.
And for you, like you said, not, I mean, you appreciate that, but you're not a numbers person. You're a relationship
Mhm.
builder. I just had this conversation recently for me too. I find that people that focus on the numbers, then no number is ever good enough.
Right,
You win 122 games, they won 125.
right.
I have 1,000 people listen to this, they want 15, 100. So
Hmm.
I think the reality of it all is, you and I are in a business that can look numbers driven from the outside looking in, but from the
Hmm.
inside looking out, I think as well as I know, and why we're on this call together right now. If you're not building relationships, you're never ever going to truly be successful.
Absolutely. And, it was my number one thing coming to Lemoyne was, establishing great relationships, not just on our team, but, in the entire department. And when I came here, I just really committed to just being all in, with whatever this department was doing. And I wasn't just going to be the women's basketball coach. I was going to, do as much as I can to help this department even grow further. And I think I'm also really happy about that, I gave everything, I gave my whole heart, here. And, I know I still have some things left, but, I'm just ready for a new chapter. As you get older, I feel like, you can't sustain it as long. So, it's really good to keep fresh. And after my days at Siena, I spent a lot of time there, 22 years. And I felt that, if I had to go back and do that again, I probably wouldn't have been there as long. And I think that it could have prolonged my career even more if I would have made more moves, earlier on. But I think in coaching, you can really get to a point where because it's so difficult, you can burn out really quickly. And I think it's really important to recognize that when you're at these points of like, okay, think I'm at a point where I need just to change it up a little bit so that, even for myself personally, I can still do some good work even as I get older. So, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Here with Gina Castelli, who spent 8 seasons with the Lemoyne College Dolphins as their women's basketball head coach, recently announcing her retirement. Gina, to do it at a time where 2018-19, you win that NE10 tournament championship, the first ever in the history of Lemoyne. We get to celebrate that. You go to the NCAA tournament. The next season, you go to the NCAA tournament, but it's cut short, and then you don't have a season. How much did the pandemic weigh into you making this decision right now?
It's so funny, I've never really thought about it. I had one of the former NE10 coaches text me. She goes, "So you made it all the way through COVID and now you're retiring? Like, why don't you stay one or two more years?" And it's, I don't know. I think that it had some things to do with it, but I do think that even last year I was contemplating this at the end of the year. And to be perfectly honest with you, we went to the NCAA tournament. We fell short in the sense that we couldn't play it, and came back. And I was thinking, now what do I do? Do I, play out another year? And I really felt that, again, my mission here in terms of what did I come here to do, to build strong relationships, to help these women grow. I thought that, sticking it out through COVID was my mission. I didn't know we were going to be playing. I didn't know what we were going to be doing, but I thought I couldn't leave my team last year at this point because I knew everybody was hurting, and I really felt that, hey, I gotta stick this out with our girls. So, and then when it came to the end of this year, I really felt that regardless of whether or not we were having a season, I just felt that again it was time. It just was that feeling inside that just said, regardless, it's time.
And for you, What made you know? I mean, how do you, I mean, you don't know until you know. So how did you know that it was time? What feelings, what thoughts, what gut, reaction? How did you just come to that conclusion that this is time?
Such a great question. I think if I didn't have the experience I had before at Siena, and maybe I wouldn't have realized it and would have just kind of, in a sense, gutted it out. But I really felt that after everything at Siena, the one thing I always said to myself is whatever you do, do it with joy. And when you don't feel that same joy, on a daily basis, it's time to move on. And I've been feeling kind of that way in the last few years. So, and I mean, I could still coach, I still can do it. I still enjoy going out, on the practice court. I just didn't feel that, I know myself, and I feel like, I just don't feel like I'm at that point right now. And I didn't want to shortchange our team, which we have really good players. I do think that, energy is really important in a practice and in games. And I think players take on your personality sometimes. And I don't want to, come into practice next year feeling like, oh, I don't want to be here, because I think that's just going to perpetuate itself onto our players. And I think that's really what made me make that decision. And selfishly, I could have probably done another 1 or 2 years, but I just again went back to that thought I had and that feeling I had after Siena. And I always said to myself, I would never go back to that. I always wanted to remain in a good mindset and a good feeling inside.
Spending over 2 decades at Siena and 8 seasons here, with a lot less of the time,
Mhm.
how did you know? Like you said, you don't want to feel that feeling again, but how did you know that that feeling was kind of potentially going to come about, even though there's 14 years of difference?
Well, I think again, as you get older, it's another thing I've learned is that, it's not, I started at Siena when I was 26. So, that's a lot different than when I started here at 50, so it's, I had a lot of years in, and at 26, I was learning everything, on the fly. And, I was just looking through some old things I had. I'm thinking, wow, how I've grown as a coach. And I think that, you have much more energy when you're younger, and you can do things for a lot longer time. I just felt that, there were some things I just didn't feel like I had wanted to do again. Especially one of the things here that's really tough is the travel.
Yeah.
And you get on the bus and you're traveling not 2 hours, but they're always 4 to 5 hour bus rides. And I felt to myself like I'm not so sure I would be energized to get on that bus again, throughout for an entire season. I could do it a few times, but I felt, I don't have it in me for that. So,
I don't think
but
anybody likes being on the bus that
yeah, I
long.
know, I know, and it's true, it is true. I mean, I think you learn to live with a lot of things, but I think it really just became just how I felt inside.
So, you've had so much passion for it. Do you step away still having passion for the game in some respect? Is there somewhere we could see you, so to speak?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been, basketball's been part of my life since I was 5 years old. So still love the game. I'm still, I still watch NBA games. I'm still like watching coaches' videos at night, new drills. I really feel that my work right now, the way I feel, and it could change, in a couple of years, but the way I feel right now is that I can serve younger coaches much more. I have a lot of experience. I do think I could pass on some of that knowledge, and maybe help avoid some pitfalls for some younger coaches so that it can move them along in their coaching career. And that's what I really want to do. Again, I was lucky enough to have some wiser, more experienced coaches when I first started, and it was a godsend to me. The things I learned, and I've always I'm a big believer in women's basketball and women coaching women, and I really would love to be able to give back to our profession in that way.
So, I mean, essentially, counseling coaches to make
Yeah, coaching coaches,
coaching
mentoring.
coaches, yeah.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
coach's coach, so to
A
speak.
coach's coach, exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
do you
Yeah.
do you feel like there's a lot of people out there doing that, or do you really do feel like there's a void?
I think that, again, when I started, there were a lot of young coaches out there. Now we're all the same age. And I see a lot of these women now as assistant coaches for maybe some Power Five conferences or what have you. And I do think we have value. I think that the issue in women's basketball, less so on the men's side, is that as you get older, people are less likely to hire you. It's a very trendy profession, and so, you know, people are always looking for younger coaches with high energy, but those younger coaches may have high energy, but they also don't have the experience. And, I don't disagree with that philosophy in terms of hiring. I just think that if there's younger coaches that, you know, um, don't have as much pride, because you really have to kind of, say, hey, can you help me out, and lean on those coaches. I think they're going to always be better off. So I think there's a lot more of us out there now, at our age to be able to help a younger coach out. And I think that there should be positions for us out there like that.
So, I mean, for you, is it being, essentially a consulting
You're
and
right.
maybe running your own business, so to speak, where you can work with people all over the country? Is that how you see it?
Yeah. I mean, eventually that would be pretty cool. I think I would like to start out more on someone's staff to see where it goes. And then I do think there are some coaches, Pam Borton, who used to coach at the University of Vermont, then at Minnesota. She has her own business, as well as I think Gail Gaston course also has her own executive coaching business. I'm not sure, I want to start my own business, but if it were to lead to that, again, I kind of have fallen into some of these positions I've had, and but I've always gone with my heart in terms of next things. So I'm excited about it.
Stepping away, feeling that it's time. Is any part of you think that you would regret it, or is your heart clear?
It's pretty clear. I think that when I thought that I would feel, if I would have felt regret, I think I would have felt it this week. But I'm not, so, and I think it's not just something that just came spur of the moment. It took a lot of thought, in terms of when I wanted to do this. And so, if I didn't feel comfortable doing it, I wouldn't have done that, but I felt in my heart that it was the right thing. And I'm pretty excited about what's next, and I'm very excited about, the opportunities our team has next year. I'll always be, a loyal Fin fan, and, and who knows, maybe they'll have some executive coaching here that I can help out with, more virtually or what have you.
Speaking here with Gina Castelli, who has spent time here in our community with the Moyne College Dolphins for almost a decade, and met her when she was coming in, talking to her in her next chapter. And, I think, Gina, before we go anywhere else, I think you already know this, but no matter where you go, I'm always going to be in that corner. And I want to thank you that you allowed me to not only interview you that day, but when you gave me the opportunity to do that, I didn't think either one of us maybe knew in that moment that we were building a friendship. And then I didn't know how much it meant to you until, I saw it as the years progressed. But I want to thank you for the fact that I feel, I mean, I can only imagine what your teammate, what the players feel, what the coaches feel from you being your peers, because I genuinely feel cared for. And I feel that, for anybody in the stands when I'm there, it was like, thank you, Dan, specifically. And it means a lot to me that you've made it a very personal thing for me beyond professional, and I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you, as you know, uh, I'm looking over there. I see Cuse in the house.
Yeah.
as you know, in Syracuse, it's all about SU, and so the publicity that you gave us, really meant a lot to me, and because we don't get that much here at Lemoyne, and I think it is kind of a diamond in the rough. There are a lot of good programs here, and um, it's remarkable how we don't get as much publicity. But I really appreciate the time and how much you knew about our program. I think that's also really important to me. It wasn't that you just wanted to have us on. You knew a lot about our team, you knew about the players, about our success, and I think that said a lot to me as well. So I appreciate what you do and how hard you work.
I mean, well, thank you. I mean, it goes a long way when your family comes up and they're like, "Oh, you're Dan," and so like that means that to me, those are the
My
things that.
sisters.
What'd you say? Would you say your sister?
I said those are my
Yeah.
sisters. Yeah. If I tell them to watch tomorrow next week, they'll be all over it. So
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think it's just real. I mean, it does. It's very rewarding. And I don't think there's anything more rewarding than somebody's family coming up to you saying, like, you had my daughter on, or you had my friend on, or my
Mhm.
sister, or my brother, like that to me. Cause normally in the media, parents and grandparents, they don't listen, they don't watch because it's negative or it's
Right.
twisted. And I have the opposite. I have the like, you interviewed my daughter and I appreciate that. So
Exactly.
those are the things I take home with me. And I do, I mean, in all honesty, it's very real to me, the relationships you build. It's what it's all about. And you come in as a professional, you leave as a friend, is how I
Yeah,
see it. And
that's so true.
and I mean, because I remember all the people coming up to you when you won the tournament championship, and you're crying and it's emotional and all these people around. And then I finally got to see you and you gave me a big hug. And it was just that moment of like, I genuinely felt like it was like all this time and you got here.
Yeah.
And I could
Yeah.
feel that, and you were telling me like, I appreciate you. I'm like, I didn't do anything but sit here and talk to you. Like you did all the work. And it's different when people like yourself win things and achieve things and make a difference in the community. It just feels different. You could be
Mhm.
1 in 100, but the character and the content of who you are, I was always going to root for you. So I remember telling people, I'm like, it's not that Lemoyne succeeded. It's not that anybody succeeded. It's that Gina did it. So to me, it's going to mean more.
Well, you're totally invested in what we did. So yeah, no, those are special times. I mean, those girls that were a part of it, and even those that weren't, they were a part of it in terms of how we built it. And I was just looking at some of my first year teams, some of the mementos and cards, and it was just awesome that they just bought in right away. Not it doesn't happen all the time, and I just think that that team, that first team, and myself, we just kind of like we just met up at the right time, and they bought in. I was all in, and everybody created this great opportunity and culture, which I hope that it continues, just like men's and women's lacrosse. I think those programs here at Lemoyne have continuously won regardless of who the coaches are, and I think that's a product of what the first coach has done, and um, what Lemoyne means. And I really think that that to me would be like the icing on the cake if next year these girls did really, really well, because it'll say a lot about, what we were able to build, these past few years.
Yeah. It's the difference between having a good era or building a culture.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And I see over your shoulder the nets, and
Yeah.
so I remember, and that video actually, it's one of my videos that went viral. My video of you just swinging
Yeah.
the net and doing your thing, and I remember just like being like, this is nuts, and just seeing like the craziness of amount of people that saw it and appreciated it and whatnot. I think you made a joke to me like, my sisters must be sharing it or something like that, but
They probably were.
it was everywhere, and it was so cool. And I got to tell you that every net ceremony I've been at, that was my favorite one.
Yeah, that was well, that was special, I mean, think about it. The first time Lemoyne women's basketball's ever won an NE10 championship, and but that too is, it's not just the culture in women's basketball; it's the culture in the athletic department. There's a wonderful culture with the Inside the L program, and I think that in and of itself has really raised the bar in terms of athletics here. So, everybody is invested in it, and all these programs are doing much better now. So yeah, it was a very proud moment, winning the NE10 championship. It was a culmination of a lot of things, as we've discussed.
Yeah, and it's I've never wanted to see somebody go up the ladder to take the net down more. I was
Well,
like, Gina deserves this more than anybody. So to do
oh,
that and to cut it down, it was really cool. And I think yeah, I mean it was just a I don't really have the perfect words because to me it's like and it's funny, like we talk and I'll say something, you'll say something, like the other person just gets it.
mhm.
Like, and I'm like, Gina, you don't, and you're like, Dan, I know. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like, it meant a lot to me. But you do, it's like, when you lead with your heart and you tell the truth, it's amazing how easily messages get across.
Mhm.
And the way
Absolutely.
that you coach, I can imagine has been that same way. And I don't feel like you've ever had a team that didn't want to be coached by you. So, how do you feel your interaction has been with your players? And do you feel like leading with your heart and caring about them and caring about relationships and them being people in society? Do you think that it created a world with you where you genuinely felt like there was mutual respect and a bridge that was able to pass information pretty easily?
Yeah, I think that's where it starts. I think when you're first meeting your team, I think it's really important to understand them on an individual basis. And I think, that's how I start. It's not so much meeting the team and laying out my expectations. It's listening to each person and, finding out a little bit about, their home life and their family. And that's how that started that year. And then watching them play a little bit, and then, meeting them as a group. And I think just those steps started, the understanding of each player with where I'm at in terms of caring, and I think when you can do that, you can lead with your heart, but also you can have tough love, so, and I think that it's a lot easier to expect more from your players when they know how much you care, and they don't want to disappoint you, so for me, I've always led that way. I mean, it hasn't always been great with every player, but I think that majority of them have understood where I'm coming from in terms of what my expectations are and how I lead, and hopefully they all in the end, even though maybe in their 4 years they may have not have, felt it, but in the end they realize how much I cared in terms of the lessons that they've learned, so um, those are the things that you can do that at a lot of levels. You don't need to be a head coach, to be that person. We've had some great assistant coaches too. Every single one of them, I would say, has had that type of leadership as well, and connection, and so therefore, stronger influences, and players working harder. And so we were lucky. I mean, even to that end, I've had great staff here that, has not been one assistant coach that I wish that I didn't have. Everyone has been great and has made a difference in our program.
And so for you, I mean, at the D2 level, I mean, you've been at D1, you've been with D2. What can you tell me about Division Two? What are some misconceptions that you feel like need to be clarified as you have been a coach here and you've had success here?
I think there's a number of things that are misconceptions. The number one is that you're dropping a level, and I tell this story I don't know how many times, but my first year I had two of my Sienna players on my staff, Christina Centeno and Lily Grenzi, and we played Bentley early on, in January, and they crushed us. And it was the year Bentley won the national championship. And I remember turning to them saying, this team would have been one of the best teams in the MAC, which Santa plays in. And they both agreed. I mean, they had at least 7 or 8 Division I level players. And, when I say Division I, the difference in Division I is that there are levels. There's low, there's mid, there's high. And I would say that the MAC sometimes could be mid to low. And Bentley was phenomenal. And the pace of play was also something I was just astounded by. In Division I, you have a lot of media timeouts. So you can play for 4 minutes or 5 minutes, and then there's a media timeout. Well, in D2, especially when we started, there were very few teams that were using media timeouts. So the pace of play was just, it was so fast, and almost to the point where I laughed in the beginning, like, are you serious? Like, when do we get a break? But you got to really appreciate that. And the level of talent is phenomenal. I mean, a lot of these players, especially in the NE10, because we're one of the premier conferences in the country, you cannot win a national championship if you don't have high level players. And, both on the women's and the men's side, the players in the league are just amazing. And you probably see that now, even in the transfer portal, Division II athletes going to some major Division I programs. So, I think those are big misconceptions. And then how hard you work, practices. I didn't treat this any differently than how I coached at Siena. Our practices were intense. Our preseason conditioning was tough. The biggest difference I always say is that the one biggest difference between D2 and D1 is there's no summer school and no opportunity where you can come in and work out with your strength coach in the summer. Yeah. So, so that also requires you to recruit self-starters, self-motivated kids, because if they're not going to be in good shape when you get them. And so, so there are some kids that even went D1 that we didn't recruit at all, because of that. I was surprised a lot, when some kids would go D1 thinking, wow, we didn't even recruit that player. So, it's a great level of play. There's a little bit more balance, in your life when you're at D2. And I think some of the rules for D1 should look at D2, Yeah. I don't think that should be at school all year round. I don't think that's a really good ingredient for success. I think it's a real good ingredient for burnout. And I don't see that as much in the D2 level.
Yeah, and you bring up a bunch of fantastic points about D2, and even looking at D3, the thought that they're not conditioning, they're not in the weight room, they're not running, they're not looking at film, they're not students and athletes, and sometimes trying to make money and take care of things. I mean, an athlete at any level is an athlete, and what they give to it and how much they give to it, says a lot. And like you said, self-starters, people that know how to take care of business without you having to hound them and be on them. So you brought up the NE10. You spoke about how great of a conference it is. To go a little bit deeper into that, just, what your thoughts are on the NE10, because, there are teams that are reputable, not just in basketball, but in general. And Moyne, like you said, has made a place for itself in women's lacrosse, men's basketball, women's basketball, pushing beyond that. It's the NE10 definitely is a challenging place. And I know some coaches within this conference that are outside of Moyne that, would probably tell you that they like the fight as well within this conference.
It's a great conference. Again, it's the coaches in the league are amazing. I said that, collectively, it's the best conference, in terms of knowledge, what these coaches do, and they stay there for long periods of time. And now I know why, because, it's a good life, if you want to stay balanced and things, it's a much different, recruiting, with our recruiting, it's different style. You can keep balance with that too. You can go like throughout the spring, some of the summer. You don't have to kill yourself at one point, So, but yeah, I would just say when I got here at Moyne, it was men's and women's lacrosse that was the top teams in the NE10. And just as time has gone on, I think there's been 17 or 18 sports in the last, I think in 2019-20 that have gone to the NCAA tournament. And that's a compliment to not only the coaches in our league at Moyne, but also the culture that we have in our department. I think is, that has to have some, play in how, in the success of these teams. But, just recently in the spring, men's tennis won the the NE10 championship. And so did men's golf. And again, so it's not just men's and women's lacrosse, and, and those programs are doing well. And in fact, lacrosse is playing right now. So, it's, I'm really proud to have been able to be a part of this, because just to see the progress in the last 8 years amongst all the sports here has been great. And when you play in the NE10, Moyne is the farthest school away, so most teams don't like to come out to us, and we're the teams that are traveling the most. And that says a lot about our success across the board. So great conference, and I'm sure Moyne will be great in years to come.
You bring up leadership at Moyne. Speaking here with Gina Castelli, inside of the Cafe Cubal studios here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And Matt Bassett was a pioneer of a lot of things. And the Ted Grant Court evolution, when you and I sat down for the first time outside of Ted Grant Court, this thing went through, you see schools have a makeover once every 10 years, 20 years, 5 years for some of them that have the money to do it. Ted Grant Court went through like an evolution, and then 3 years later, another one, then the next year, another one. And then it did it again. Like the seats got different, the experience got different. It just, I felt like sometimes from one season to another, or every couple seasons, I was like, oh, those are new chairs. Oh, this is different. Oh, they moved that. Oh, they brought that in. It just seemed like it was constantly evolving. Matt Bassett, part of bringing you in there. What can you tell me about what he meant to you as an AD, and what do you think about the leadership right now?
Phenomenal leader and mentor. I think Matt came into, which it still blows my mind. He wasn't here that long, I think 10 or 12 years, but when he got here, and this was before I was here, he had to address Title IX issues. And think about that. It's like, 12 years ago, he was addressing Title IX issues that they had here at Moyne in athletics. And, those things should have been addressed in the 90s, if that. And so that in and of itself he did. Plus, it wasn't just the basketball courts and the facility and the Ted Grant Court. It was, lacrosse and soccer, turf field, baseball, softball. He did a lot for facilities. So he upgraded quite a bit. The locker room situations, he upgraded that, so there were a lot of things that he did to make things better for us. But primarily, I think his mark in this program is the culture that he developed with Matt Davidson, called the Inside the L program, which incorporated the Jesuit values, and it was intertwined with athletics. And it's with students, student athletes, coaches, parents, alumni. So everybody is taught and is taught about the culture, and there's different ways that we learn it. And it's not just something that you put on a wall and it's a mission statement. It's something that we actively do, throughout the semester. Even throughout COVID, we had athletic department Zoom meetings on Inside the L. We had these cohort meetings where we would meet with, different classes, the juniors, the seniors, the freshmen, the sophomore, and, we would talk about different themes. So, it's constantly spoken about here at Moyne. And to me, that has to play in somewhere, both as a coach, and as a student athlete, and how you're thinking on a daily basis is basically, what it's done, and it's created this real positive culture here in our department that I really think has changed the success level of our of athletics.
And you having that, the culture, I mean, you got to be a part of that, and you and I have
Mhm.
spoken about it. Some of the best years of Lemoyne, I mean, you got, or arguably the best, you got to be a part of that. As you
Mhm.
step away, what does that mean to you that you got to see the evolution of the athletic department of Lemoyne, of this school, just really putting into the programs, putting into the facilities, and making sure that you coaches had a better experience and more to utilize and promoting and recruiting and whatnot? I mean, what does that mean to you to be a part of the wave?
Yeah, I remember the very first meeting we had was an all department meeting, and the theme of the year was gratitude attitude. And I remember we have these athletic meetings with the students at night, because it's either early in the morning or at late at night, because they don't have classes, at 9 o'clock. So this was a 9 o'clock meeting that Matt Bassett had put together, and it was on gratitude and tough love. I remember this, um, and I remember walking at 10 o'clock at night to my car, thinking, "Wow, this is pretty cool to be a part of this." Been coaching for, at that point, like 20, 25 years, and I had never experienced anything like it. And I was so enthralled by it, because we were also having coaches meetings as well. And we were talking about, let's say, Magis which is striving for excellence. And we would take that one piece, and each coach would talk about what they were doing in their programs, to show Magis, what does it look like, in the practice drills that you have? What does it look like in how you're talking to your team? And it was like no right or wrong answer. It was just almost like, coffee with the other coaches at 7 o'clock in the morning about these themes and about these values. And we were coming away with ideas. So if Scott Cassidy was saying something that he's done, or Joe Tesori's done for golf, there's still some things that some of those guys have said that I try to incorporate in my practice. So it was all healthy stuff. And we do these at clinics, at coaches clinics, but you rarely do it within your own department. You go to these coaches clinics and you get all this information from men's and women's basketball coaches, but you don't always get it from all these other sources, all these other coaches that are very successful. And it was great. Obviously, Dan Sheehan, a winner, in men's lacrosse. I mean, when he would speak, you try to write down as much as possible. Um, so yeah, I just think that, it's something that's uniquely different from any 10 schools. So when you're recruiting, it was something that you could talk about, and it's uniquely different from a lot of schools in the country. And now there are other Jesuit schools that are trying to incorporate something very similar to what we've done here, which is really cool.
Yeah. And Gina, before I let you go, you talked about Title IX and what Matt Bassett had to deal with, and things that, issues with Title IX and whatnot. Women's basketball, where is it at? Has it gotten anywhere where you're happy where it's at? Where does it need to go? So kind of Title IX slash women's basketball in the broader scope of Title IX, but women's basketball in general. Where are things at in your opinion right now? Now that we can see the games on the
Mhm.
NCAA tournament, for D1 at least, we're not just seeing, not just seeing Tennessee and UConn. We're actually seeing, I mean, Arizona, people fell in love with their guard, and so many people had no idea who she was because we didn't get to see her ever.
Mhm.
And then she
Mhm.
goes to the WNBA draft and is drafted high. So, what
Yeah.
can you say about where is women's basketball? Have we gotten anywhere? And then Title IX wise, just how maybe that ropes into it.
Well, I definitely think there's a lot of improvement since I started, coaching. I mean, just in terms of salaries alone, I think when I first got my head coaching position, I was making $20,000, So we've definitely improved, in some areas, but, just some of the things that have happened this postseason with NCAA and, some things going viral in terms of just the practice facility or lack thereof in terms of strength and conditioning and the swag bags. And, I think that we still have a long ways to go in terms of how women's basketball and how all women's sports are being really treated. I think there's a level of acceptance, that we can't have. And I think that happened now, with a student athlete putting it out there in terms of, the lack of facilities that, the women's postseason, the NCAA tournament had for the women's game. So I think it's better. I mean, I definitely, I like that we're trending and more also hiring more females for these head coaching positions too. I think that's great as well. But there's still needs to go a lot farther. We're getting there, but I think it still needs a lot of work.
Well, we see men get hired as women's basketball coaches, but we don't see women ever on the men's side, very sparingly. Uh,
Yeah,
Hence why Becky Hammond is a name that everybody
yeah,
knows,
exactly.
because we
Yeah.
never see her or never see anybody like that. What are your thoughts on that? That men have easily crossed into the women's game. Is it time for women to just be treated like, hey, if you know X's and O's and you know the game, then you could be a coach there? Because I feel like we're in 2021, and I feel like there's people that just can't wrap their heads around a woman running a men's basketball team.
It's funny. I think that just working with younger kids, especially boys, I do think that a lot of boys have been brought up with, females coaching them. And I think it's less about the generation and more about like an older group of people thinking, oh, I can't hire this female for a men's job. I think that like Becky Hammond, I think those guys were fine when she had to take over that one day, when Popovich got thrown out of the game. I don't think they even thought twice about it at the time. They just wanted to win the game. So I think that's where we eventually have to get to. But I personally would like to see, and I know Q, he's a great man, and he's a great friend of mine. But I personally would like to see women coaches being hired on the women's side a little bit more too. I think we could always say, hey, yeah, we could cross over, but first let's do it on our own in our own sport. I think that's the issue right now to me, that I still don't grasp that. I don't understand how, that happens, on a daily basis, where it's, there's a lot of good women's coaches out there that should be hired, and they're getting passed over for, a guy that, maybe didn't even play college basketball, so that to me, it's astonishing to me that happens a lot.
Yeah, coming from Gina Castelli here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Two final points here. Gina, first one is, as you close this chapter and start a new one, what are you most grateful for? What goes through your mind when you look at Ted Grant Court for the last time, or the last time as the head coach, I should say?
Yeah, I'm very grateful for one, the opportunity. I'm mostly grateful for all the people that, both here at Moyne and at Siena, all the Rhode Island, Marquette, all those places that I've been, that I was just treated with open arms. The players, assistant coaches, the administration, all those people that supported me to help me get to where I am. I couldn't have done the things that we did here if people didn't believe in the vision we had, first and foremost, and had tried to help us get there. And same thing at Siena, and and other places. I'm just really just grateful that I got to do, and I get to do what I love to do all of my life. I mean, I have to pinch myself, thinking that I started playing basketball when I was 5 and I'm still playing basketball, so it's pretty cool that you could do what you love, all your life. And yeah, I'm retiring, but doesn't mean that, I'm not going to stay in the game. So I know that there's other things for me to do.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk with you about those as we go. I have some ideas.
Awesome.
My last piece is you have been so great over the years to answer my questions. So, as I always do on Wake Up Call, rapid fire, giving me the opportunity to put myself on the hot seat. I don't know any other broadcaster that will purposely do this. I don't know anybody in the media that will answer a question, or honestly, but I'm here. You got 3 questions, a trio, anything in the world. I have no idea what you're going to ask me, but I have to answer it. So, whenever you're ready.
Oh my God. I'm usually really good at asking questions. You should have prepared me on this one. Um, who,
Gotta have it be off the cuff.
besides me,
Okay.
besides me, who's the best person you've interviewed?
Besides you, who's the best person I interviewed? I would have to say it's a cross between one that was for the show and one that wasn't. That would be Floyd Little
Okay.
and
Oh, nice.
my grandma, my G mom.
Oh,
I would ask her about my grandfather and her and World War II and record it. And because she actually ended up building like the 15 caliber guns and
mhm.
did all this stuff. And in her 90, like her arms, these little tiny arms, they were so strong, like stones, like just metal, that if she like arm wrestled you, this little tiny 90-pound woman, because I mean, she did all this stuff. I mean, she raised a family. She had to learn how to be a mom without a mom. Like
Mhm.
my grandmother, all these stories. I love her so much. And
Well,
yeah, Floyd. I mean, Floyd is
he sounded like a remarkable person.
one of my closest friends. And
Um,
uh it broke my heart, but all the memories I have with him, I know that I spent my time. I would like to think I spent my time well with him. So
that's cool. And are you doing exactly what you want to be doing, or do you have other goals?
there's plenty. Uh, I, so I actually just talked about this recently. There's a lot of S's. It's funny.
Hmm.
I've been involved with music, so like singing, screenwriting, stand up. There's all these S things I want to do, but I see myself as a storyteller, which is
Hmm.
also an S. And between screenwriting and doing music, and I mean, I think about it like if I made a movie and I could screenwrite it, direct in it, help bring it to life, act in it, sing on the soundtrack, I guess that would do it all. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of things that I feel like God put inside me that I really want to share, and it comes with having the love and trust in yourself. I truly believe if I say to God, I'm ready to do it, then He's like, here. So it's just about really not caring what the world thinks, because God's, and if an opinion is hateful or derogatory, I mean, it doesn't mean people don't agree, but
Hmm.
if it doesn't come from God, I'm not listening.
Hmm.
So I could be the best actor in the world, people are going to hate it. Be the best broadcaster, people are going to hate it. You could be the best coach, people are going to hate it. So
Hmm.
I think what you realize is when you stop thinking about what people think and you start thinking about what God thinks, and if you really feel like you can lay your head on a pillow at night and be proud of yourself, if we stopped thinking about the rest of the world and just took care of home base, I think we'd be a lot better. So I am a storyteller, and I look forward to the opportunity of God allowing me to tell my stories in many different ways to hopefully help people smile and make their life a little bit better.
Beautiful. And what are you most grateful for?
My life, God giving me second chances,
Mm.
um, realizing my worth, um, doing that, spending this entire last year working on a healthy mind, a healthy body. I've never been in a better place in my mind, and I've never been healthier as a human being physically. So I think when I finally put in the work to take care of myself from the inside out without needing anything from the outside in, I think You know, the reality of it all is you have to be your best friend.
Mm,
You have to love yourself. You have to believe in yourself. Um, I've always believed in my dreams and I've always chased them, but I haven't always been the kindest person to myself.
mm,
So I think I'm most grateful today that I love Dan Tortora, and my happy place is wherever I am because I know God's there. I know the people that care about me are a phone call or a text message away. And I could not be more proud of the life that I have chosen to build the way that I've chosen to build it. And I don't think there's an army on this planet that could beat my army. So,
that's awesome.
so those are my words. Those are
Love it.
incredible
Love it.
questions from Gina
I'll have
Castelli.
to share that to my team on Friday when I talk to them again.
But
Yeah.
Gina, thank you for
Thank you very much, Dan.
going.
Really appreciate you. Yeah.
And I look forward to talking with you very soon. And like I said, I got some ideas for
Absolutely.
us.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks.
All
Look
right.
forward
Take
to it.
care.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Thank
Bye.
you.